Today I want to talk about an occurrence that happened in Salt Lake City involving a nurse and a police officer. It took place in a hospital. It involved the nurse who was licensed and a policeman who wasn't, and an unconscious patient. Apparently, what was reported in the press and the internet was a policeman was pursuing a driver in a high-speed chase. The driver ran into a truck driver, colliding head-on. The truck driver was brought to the hospital for treatment. The driver of the car that was being pursued was dead at the scene. So the scene changes now to the hospital. And in the hospital, there's a bunch of doctors floating around and a bunch of nurses floating around, a bunch of technicians floating around. And of course, it's the emergency room. And the scene unfolds with the doctor, or excuse me, with the nurse talking to the policeman. He wants to go in and draw some blood from an unconscious patient. And she's trying to explain why he can't do it. It's kind of enlightening watching their conversation, because each one called a supervisor. The nurse explained that they had some protocols or procedures that were worked out between the police department and the hospital about when they could or could not take bodily fluids. Well, after a while, the police officer said, "That's it. You're under arrest," and grabs the young female nurse, spins her around, escorts her out the door, handcuffed. She's screaming, "You're hurting me. The handcuffs hurt." He was saying, "Well then, walk faster. Keep up. Quit resisting." This seems to be the standard line now for cops when they misbehave. In any event, she sat in the squad car while various officers sat around debating it, and that was the end of the tape. The next day, the mayor and the chief of police apologized to them for their behavior. Well, I don't think that's enough, frankly. And here's why. It shows a police state mentality that has permeated our country for the last 3 or 4 decades. The police training is such that they are trained to be an occupation force, not a helping hand force. A lot of their training and a lot of what they do is revenue generating. You go to Europe, you see the police out there all the time in marked cars, see what they can do to help. And in Colorado and other places in the United States, we used to have a courtesy patrol, and they would carry gas around and they would try to start cars, jump them, and give gas to drivers. Not anymore. Now we have unmarked cars lurking, waiting for somebody to make a mistake or commit an offense that they can issue a ticket to, and therefore increase the revenues of the local jurisdictions. I don't think that's what law enforcement was really intended to do. But it's accepted now because of the brainwashing that's been done to the public by certain right-wing parties and groups, convincing the public that taxes are bad, government's bad, and therefore We shouldn't pay our taxes, and tax money shouldn't be used to do certain things that benefit the public, which again is absolute bullshit. So while this bully policeman is standing there, the woman is trying to explain. She shows the policeman a document where it says that the policeman can only draw blood if there's a warrant signed by the judge, or if he has probable cause an offense has been committed, or if the patient gives consent. Now, the patient was unconscious. Obviously, then he couldn't give consent. There was no probable cause, and there was no warrant. But the policeman wasn't going to accept that. Now, you've got to wonder why. I will tell you why I suspect that's the case. Because you have a rubber stamp judiciary that covers up for the police every time they're out of line. You have a Supreme Court case saying that if a police officer makes a good faith mistake, he can get illegal or gather illegal evidence and use it at a trial. That wasn't the law until 1980. Blood tests and breath tests weren't being used until the 70s. That all came with Nixon. So look at who gets trained to do what. Nurses are trained to help people, tend to them, administer healthy things, and treat them. They have the equivalent of a Hippocratic oath. We saw no violation there. However, think of what the police do. First off, they don't have nearly as much training. And obviously, they don't lose a job if they violate their oaths like a nurse will, or lose their license like a nurse may. But this police officer in Utah displayed a mammoth ignorance of the Constitution. He took an oath to uphold the Constitution, I'm sure. But what does the Constitution say? It says a lot of things. And the first thing it does is curtail police power. And he didn't want his police power curtailed. He wanted free reign to do anything he wanted to. He was the boss over everything. That's like the Nazis saying, I'm just following orders because the Fuhrer allows me to do it. It's absolute bullshit. So while this cop's on administrative leave, while they investigate, and I don't see where there's much investigation needed because of the tape, he ought to be made to get re-educated. He ought to be made to retake an exam about the Constitution and his understanding of it, and pass that before he can get his bag back. Other than that, he can be a meter maid or something, but not be in a position where he can arrest. The other thing, he ought to be better trained. Certainly, the Justice Department ought to investigate the judiciary in Salt Lake City to see why a police officer would dare conduct himself as such in a hospital. Whether it's illegal or not, or whether it's unconstitutional or not, it's bad form to go barging in on an unconscious patient, gathering evidence that may or may not be used against him. I think that's unconscionable. And it shows a lack of ethics on the police part. So is getting a conviction more important than human life? When I first started practicing law, there was a moratorium on high-speed chases because it endangered both the driver being chased and innocent passengers. Well, soon the concept of law and justice got changed to where it got equated with punishment, and they changed all that. They changed the concept of searches and seizures, all to get convictions. Now, the next time I'm going to talk probably about the driving under the influence law and the effect they've had on people.